this time, do you?
The only thing I have, and it's a longer letter than normal, we got a notification back from the Budget and Finance Committee that they approved all of the following, and I'll just list them all, from the last several meetings. Supplemental funding request, the National College Media Convention was approved, for the PESH Club was approved, for the Women in Aviation Conference was approved, for the Source was approved, for the National Intramural Recreation Sports Association was approved, for Boots and Cats Club was approved, and the Law and Justice Club were all approved at what we sent the recommendation for. So I won't go through the full amounts, but they were all approved.
Cool, thank you. Any other reports?
That's all I have.
All right. At this time, I'd like to move on to section 6, public comment. Is there any public comment at this time? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to section 7, seeing that there is no new business. We'll move on to section 8, old business, subsection A, base funding requests. Number 1418. Is the camera recording?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Number 1418. At this time, I'd like to open up the table for discussion. Learning Commons Tutoring Services is requesting $90,125. We'll discuss this for 10 minutes. Connie?
I would like to make a couple of points on this request. And first, the important piece is that it's a base increase request. So it's not going to just impact 1 year, it's going to impact multiple years. We just approved a quadrennium budget. And because it's a fairly material amount, and would impact the budget long term, I think it would be a really good idea, and I applaud the suggestion that we delay a week to do a little bit, especially with the financial manager traveling. It would be really good to look at the impact this would have over a 4-year period, and whether we want to approve this as a base budget increase or possibly a supplemental request. And then, may I make one other point?
Yeah.
Okay. And my second point is I'd like to explore alternative methods of possibly funding this. I had questions as to whether or not a portion of it, I do realize it, and I agree it's an exceptionally important program that we definitely want to see continue. It assists students that need the assistance, and it helps with retention, but I think it would be good if we looked at a way that those that actually use the program not fully support it, but maybe support it in part. Much like the one thing that I can make comparison to is our athletic center, the recreation center. Thank you. Where students have to pay an additional amount if they want to use the additional services. It's not a large amount, but it is a small amount. They do that in the child care as well. And so I think because, and I'm not arguing that it's not a very valid program, I'm just looking at possibly other alternatives that might be considered.
We'll go Ashley, JD, Derek.
Well, I couldn't agree with Connie more, and especially in the point of possibly considering this as a supplemental request. There are other groups in the past, I believe, that have gone through several years of supplemental funding with the intent of being considered as a base funded at the next quadrennium. And so I think that this might be a good instance to employ that long-term technique, I guess.
JD?
I wanted to kind of touch on what Connie said about the cost, having those students who use it. I like that idea, and I agree with it a lot. And when thinking about it, I thought of some downfalls to it. And one of those may be that it may limit the people that use it. They'll be able to use it because they can't afford it. But then I also thought of how that can actually benefit, or the amount, they can limit the people who use it or the amount of times they use it. And I also thought how that could be a benefit in the fact that I know this is a different program, but we use logic here. When Captain Cook came in and talked about the RAD program, he discussed how important it was to have buy-in, so somebody actually paid a fee, so they feel like they have to go or something. And if somebody saw money leaving their hand or leaving their wallet or their bank account or something like that in order to do this, they might have more like, okay, I really have to pay attention. I have to get this down. I have to learn this. Or mom calls and says, hey, money's tight. We can only afford really for you to do 4 more of these. They say, I only have 4 more times to learn how to do this and to get this stuff down. And it may put them in a position where they really use the time effectively, and they're really serious about it. And those are some concerns and I don't know the other word for concerns. So.
Derek, Todd, and Robert.
Yeah, I want to just address what Connie was saying. I think that what we should go to a model that's maybe similar to the way that we changed the printing, so that we don't have a few people who are consuming 90% of it and everybody else paying for it, and more of a, you get a certain number of free work at the Learning Commons, and then after that you're going to start having to chip in a little bit, just because that's fair.
Todd and Robert.
Just questions for Connie. Or clarifications, but Connie, the $90,000, was that going to be $30,000 a year for the next 3 years for this, finish out this quadrennium? Is that the request?
I was not very clear on that, so that would be another question that we would need to clarify, whether that was $95,000 per year, $95,000 over a 3-year period.
90,000, yeah. That was just because you were saying about a quadrennium, but
We're in the first, and basically that's the
so
second.
we've only got 3 more years left.
Well, unless they're asking for funding in this year too, because we're in the first
So we're not
year of our
clear about
4-year.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
You may.
Can I recognize the gallery? You might have the answer for
Yeah,
that.
we know you're midway through a cycle. We were thinking next 3 years.
So 90,000.
90,000 per.
Okay. That answers your question, Todd.
90,000.
Robert, and then Derek.
You.
Okay, Derek.
So is the 90,000 the complete base funding, or is that the new base funding?
It would be in addition to the 45.
Okay, so it's $135,000 per year
Yes.
for that.
Yes.
Okay.
Robert and Ashley.
May I direct a question to?
Yes.
Last week when you mentioned if you were not to get this, there would be cuts. Can you just clarify that a little more, like what exactly you're talking about when you say cuts?
Yeah, so what we would have to do, I told you last week that we're running 30,000 above what we're actually budgeted for this year. So that 30,000, we can maybe run it that full again next year. But after next year, we'd go back to the 65,000. So there would be 30,000 less in tutoring available, if that makes sense.
Because Learning Commons has carry forwards right now, and so those carry forwards are sustaining that growth in tutoring demand.
But we're almost out.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
so this 90,000, it would be not extend available student tutoring hours. It's just to pay existing tutors now, so you don't have to cut back on hours.
Right, it's to sustain the program the way we ran it this year. What we did this year was look at student use and bumped up the number of hours we were providing of tutoring in response to that use, to make sure that everyone who came in could be seen.
Ashley and Jenny.
Thank you, Jacob. I have some concerns with the discussion last week over how this 90,000 will be used in regards to student staff, that no other new student staff will be hired, but rather those already employed will be given more hours. And while I don't think that that is a bad thing, I would prefer to see a mixture of that, or I would prefer to see more students with some work than those with work having more hours. And while I understand it's not necessarily our place to dictate that, it gives me concerns about funding the full amount. So I think as I move forward, I'll be considering other amounts that might be appropriate, less than the full amount.
Jay?
To add on to that, I think it's also really important that Catherine isn't here, but she did bring up a point about how there are majors that are not as well represented. And to Ashley's point there, having more employees is going to give a broader base of people to pull from in order to say, like, okay, we've got more, oh wow, now we have somebody who's in law and justice. Now we have somebody who's in IT, and we can, by increasing that, I think that would really use that money effectively. And then my my next thing is, can I ask you a question?
You can recognize the gallery,
Recognize the
yes.
gallery. So, you started this carry forward in April of 2011, correct? In the fall of
Yeah,
2011.
It was the 11-12.
So starting in the fall of 2011. When that decision was made, what was the backup plan, if I can use that word, to say, okay, this money isn't gonna, we're not filling this carry forward this spot. What are we gonna do when this money runs out? When you made that decision, what was your plan to do? Was your plan to initially come for more funding, or what was that?
The plan was kind of, we didn't have a plan going into it. We didn't know what the Learning Commons was going to be at that point. It was brand new. And over the course of that year, we didn't know whether we would need that money to fill positions or whether we would be able to use it in other ways within the program. There wasn't a plan for it. And we ended up filling the positions and having it and thinking, okay, we've got this money, now we need to decide how we're going to use it. Let's increase tutoring because we know the demand is going up. And so we started putting it that way. As far as
Go ahead, Alicia.
As far as developing a plan for moving forward, we explored the potential of adding a fee to make up for that. We did come to you as soon as we realized that was a possibility. Jesse, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, just really, Prairie's so humble. So I just here's my observation, okay? In the fall of 11, the provost office handed over tutoring services to Prairie and I to manage. And at that point, they had changed the funding paradigm. So instead of having state dollars, it was going to go to self-support dollars. The projections were that we'd have over $500,000 of developmental funds coming in. As Prairie and I took the handoff, took the baton, and started looking at what's enrollment really looking like and what kind of developmental dollars are really going to come in, we were able to see that it was going to come in far short of 500,000 plus. And so at that point, we did not fill a number of positions, and Prairie basically worked by herself to keep tutoring open for that entire school year. The fact that we did that then meant that we were able to collect some amount of carry forward because Prairie was so incredibly frugal that year that this amount of carry forward was established. We really didn't look at too much of that carry forward over the last year or two, but this year then, Prairie and the group made the decision, you know what, we're seeing demands rise so high that the only way for us to address it is to dip into this carry forward that we obtained a few years ago, and let's see what kind of services we can provide. So that's, when you ask about the plan, 3 years ago, Prairie and I we didn't necessarily go into it with a plan because we were saying, here's the new paradigm, try to make it work. And so we made it work that first year, and then we had to see what's enrollment going to be like. And now we're to the point where we're able to say, okay, we have a better sense of what enrollment is. Let's go ahead and expend these carry forward dollars to meet demand. So I hope that gives some.
And which kind of leads to my next question was when you did that, and you said that we're going to increase the amount of money we spend to increase demand. Why did you choose to meet demand so much instead of doing it in smaller increments so that you could have sustained a higher level of meeting demand, even though it might not be the demand you're at now. Instead of being able to do 2,800 tutorials a quarter, you can do maybe like 2,200 tutorials a quarter, but for 8 quarters. So you potentially could have impacted more students. And that's kind of where my question is leading. What was the plan to say, if we want to go this high, how are we going to keep that high after that?
Okay, demand has surprised us every quarter. We didn't know it was going to increase as much as it did. And so every quarter we've had to readjust. We're trying to see what it actually is, but it keeps increasing. So we haven't hit that point where we're saying, okay, this is approximately what the demand is, and we're able to plan for that, because it's increased every quarter. So you'll notice even from fall quarter this year to winter quarter, there was an increase in the number of tutorials. That doesn't happen in tutoring centers. Winter quarter is always smaller than fall quarter, and spring quarter is always smaller than fall quarter and winter quarter. But we haven't hit that point yet where we're evening out and we're able to really estimate what demand is going to be.
Okay.
And I think in terms of plans, we've had plans. We've had multiple memorandum to the provost office to say, here's what we're experiencing. Is there any avenue to collect state funds? We've been denied on every one of those fronts. We've proposed to do a mandatory student fee like some of you are suggesting might be the appropriate route to go. We've been asked to not go that route. We've been asked to come before S&A, so here we are in front of S&A. So in terms of have we explored other routes, we absolutely have spent an inordinate amount of time exploring other routes. Now, that doesn't need to shape your opinion, right? Because you may still decide S&A is not the appropriate venue for funding this. But please know that we've done our homework and we've gone a number of different routes.
I'd just like to remind the committee that we have no jurisdiction over, past what they've done with their budget in the past, and I think it's clear that they haven't mismanaged their funds. It's just a surprise in demand, so I think we should refrain from questions that have to do with their past budget, because clearly it's a surprise. I'd also like to entertain a motion to extend discussion for 12 minutes and 37 seconds. Connie?
I will take that one.
Is there a second? Miles, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we'll extend for 12 minutes and 37 seconds. Okay, can you watch the clock for me on that one? Okay, there was an order here. It's going to go Derek, because your hand's been up for about 8 minutes now, and then Connie.
So, so as I understand it, what we're talking about is if this is not funded, the first thing that we're looking at cutting is the actual service. We're not looking at cutting the professional staff, no matter what. Is that correct?
Are you asking me or?
I'm asking you. I'm asking anybody who cares to answer. I guess you can.
I don't know the answer to that.
Can I recognize?
I'd like to
Gallagher
recognize
for the answer?
Gallagher.
We're running with bare bones professional staff right now. If we cut someone, it means somebody else has to pick up a job, and most of us are already doing more than one full-time job to run the program the way.
So can I
Can I just redirect that for a second? Isn't about 75 to 80% of the money being spent on admin fee and professional staff? I don't remember. I don't have the budget right in my head, but I thought that it was about $190,000 for professional staff plus 85 for the admin fee, which is 28% of the
Yeah,
total.
for the professional staff, you're looking at instructional costs in there too, because we're paying developmental faculty out of that, so that's what I think you're wanting to get.
Did
I
you,
see. Okay,
did you
so
get
it's
the
not
email
clear at all.
that Kay sent out that has the professional staff listed and what they do?
Yes.
Okay, and a lot of those, I think 3 or 4 positions were faculty positions by
Yeah, I
writing
think
in
it was
that.
all clear what.
And there's a
sort of
West Side
segregation.
associate director
Right.
and then office assistant 3 and yourself.
Right.
So I mean, just to give you a real quick sense, when we were operating on 1,000 tutorials a quarter, sorry, I want to make sure I get the right metric. We have not grown professional staff since that time, so we hired professional staff to meet that need. We're at 3,000 tutorials a quarter. The only change we made in professional staff is we've worked with the multimodal program on campus to say, you know what, we're getting this deluge now of online students, and we need to really address online tutoring services. So that's the only avenue we've gone, and that actually has been funded out of the multimodal program. But in terms of growing professional staff, it hasn't happened. We set the staffing at 1,000 tutorials a quarter, and we're still there.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is that the reason why this doesn't make any sense is because it's all in one thing, but we're only talking about one aspect of it, right? Because you have a bunch of money that's being spent on something that is entirely unrelated to what we're talking about here.
Right.
Okay.
The
All right.
administrators do more than just.
They don't. That part has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Right.
Okay, right.
teach. I
Got
run
it.
the developmental studies program in
Okay.
addition to the tutoring centers.
Connie, before I recognize you, I have a couple questions. Do you know how other institutional models look, similar to our size, such as Western, how they're funded?
Western is funded, let's see, all I know about Western is their writing center, and they're funded through S&A.
Okay.
They have one administrator who administers their writing center program, so
Okay.
specifically that piece of their tutoring services.
Okay.
They do have a very large learning commons, though. I don't know about the other pieces of it.
Okay, I think that'd be something to look into for us maybe this week. And my next question was, how much, Jesse, if you might know this, how much percentage is online students and multimodal seeking help from the Learning Commons? Do you know?
Well, so they've just funded one, what we're calling an online tutoring coordinator position.
Okay.
So it's similar in nature to what we pay lecturers in Canvas.
And it's not included in what I gave you because we didn't know for sure it was gonna be funded.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's just,
We
this is the
just
first
found out.
quarter that it started.
All right. Connie?
I had one comment and then one question. The first comment, and I made it originally, is I think the program is exceptionally important. I have no argument about that. So my second question is this, though. Our enrollment has not increased overall. It's relatively stayed flat, and we are working to try to increase that. But so if our enrollment has stayed flat, why do you think the demand for tutoring has increased so much? And the reason I'm asking is because to the point that we made in another comment, and I believe it was Jared, or possibly JB, if we asked people to pay just a small portion of that, I'm not talking a fee, but like, you know, they have to purchase this plan for the tutoring. Do you think that the demand is because people are using it as a crutch more and more? Because we're not getting more people, but you're almost saying your demand is, you know, time and a half, 150%, et cetera, so why?
I think the demand has always been there. We used to turn a lot of students away. There were points where we would say, we just don't have enough tutors. I also know that as recruitment has been getting tighter, we're more in competition with other schools for the same student population. We've been lowering our admissions index number, which means we're getting students who are less prepared for the demands of university level work. So I think you could attribute some of it to that. I also think moving to the library increased our visibility significantly and made it easier for students to walk through the door that first time you seek tutoring. It isn't easy to ask for help, but it's easy to say I'm going to the library to study. And hey, there happen to be tutors here now, and what if I dropped into the math center because what I'm here to study for is actually the math class. So I think a lot of it had to do with the physical space and the ease of access in the library to the service.
Todd and Ashley.
Tell me one more time what the $90,000, what the tutoring is going to be, what area?
We're talking about the two primary tutoring areas, the math center and the writing center, and it'll be a 50-50 split between those two services. We fund them pretty much the same. And we're talking about staffing of them and how wide-ranging that is, and that's true.
And then your original $45,000 base budget?
The original, the
What does that
65,
go-
oh, the 45,
Yeah.
the base budget from S&A
Yeah.
goes to services at the West Side Centers.
The West Side Center,
Yeah,
so
that-
none of that, none here.
None of that is spent in Ellensburg, that's all West Side.
That's good. Good to know.
Ashley.
Thank you, Jacob. I'd like to share a personal story of a friend of mine. We got into a discussion about the tutoring center just today, actually, and I was very surprised by the story, and it might explain some of Connie's questions. She said she took an English 102 class several years ago. I think it may have even been the first year that y'all were open. And her professor required the class to take their first draft of their paper to the Writing Commons and sit with the tutor and meet with them before they could turn it in. And there was a grade attached to that. And the work that they do in the Writing Commons, they actually touch base after the tutors met with the student, then they'll email the professor and say, hi, we just met with so-and-so. So there's a full circle loop there between the professor, the tutor, and the student. And I think that's fantastic. But in regards to this request, I am reluctant and even against charging students for at least a service by service basis or a punch card, if you will, anything to that effect where they have to pay for this service. I think we pay a lot of money in tuition, we pay a lot of money in fees, and you know, if and when, because S&A does fund this, and if we do continue to fund this in addition, those are student fees that are coming from their pockets and going to that service. So I think back to my friend who told me this story, and I think if I had been in her shoes and I was told by the professor I need to go and have my paper approved through this service as a part of my grade, and and I arrive and they tell me, you actually have to pay $10, you have to pay $15 for a 3-session service, whatever the price may be, I'd be a little off put. And in addition to that, if it was a package deal where you pay $50 for 10 sessions, and I was only doing it, I felt like a confident writer, I was comfortable, I get good grades, but I was being required to do this. I purchased my punch card, now I have 9 more sessions. While I agree there's an argument to incentivizing students to use this tool, if it's something I don't feel like I need to use, maybe I'll use it just to use it, because what am I going to do? I have 9 sessions now. I might as well go talk to somebody about it. And I could be taking a service away from another student who could use that, who could really use that. Because that tutor is spending time with me when they could be spending it with a student who has a lot of challenges. Thank you.
All right, Derek?
I think that what I think maybe Connie meant was that instead of you paying for a punch card, you got 10 punches, that at the beginning of the quarter you got like 5 sessions there automatically, and then if you needed more than that, you pay like $1 or something like that for each one. Just to increase, because I mean, like the way that our printing model works, because people are, what do you get, like $15 in printing? You're not going to just waste the printing because you have it.
That the numbers would no way benefit the Learning Commons because no student is going 5 times. If you look at the numbers, it's about 4 visits per student is what it is. For math and what 3
2
for
writing.
2 for writing. So that there'd be no benefit to doing that.
Okay.
But yeah, JD.
Yeah.
I think something to the effect of, and I know this is not our role as this committee to dictate what you guys do at all, and so, but I think something along the lines of, a pay at the time. So you come in and you give your student ID number, or and it goes to your account, or however, that would be the more reasonable approach for something along those lines. And as long as for paying for it. And I do agree with Ashley, and I do think that there's ways to figure that out. Although that's not our role as this community.
I have a question for the gallery. Have you looked into departmental charging at all? Because if the English department, if their classes are requiring students to go to the Learning Commons and requiring your services, I just feel like then maybe the department should be paying for some of that. If
So
they're requiring a bulk of the students.
The departments are barely able to pay for the instruction of their general classes.
Okay.
Asking them to pay for more is unrealistic.
Okay.
And I think one way to look at that too is really as you've seen the data that Perry provided us last week, I mean, the courses that are most using it are English 101 and 102. So that's a university. University said those are our core writing composition courses. And so that really is more of a university gen ed type decision than it is an English department.
Well, maybe they're used most because the teachers are making their students go, and
We also limit the number of times a faculty member can require a student
Okay.
to go. It's 1.
okay,
Okay.
that's good. Because you mentioned stretching the departments thin. Well, they're stretching you guys thin in return with requiring their students to use your services.
And we really
So-
discourage required visits, particularly cold class required visits, because half the students in the
You guys are
class
stretched,
actually
yeah,
tutoring.
yeah, exactly. So, I think Robert. Did you have
I just think it's kind of a stretch to ask students to pay for tutoring. I like the fact that you can go, and I have personally gone to the Learning Commons and gotten tutoring. I think that's an important service, and for us to take away that from the students, it's just unfortunate.
No, I agree because I still can't use commas and I'm going to law school next year. So
I'm
I
sorry.
definitely need you guys. Ashley?
Thanks, Jacob. I'd like to move to table the vote on this for next Wednesday, the 16th.
All right, there's been a motion. Is there a second? Miles?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, this has been tabled for a vote till next Wednesday. If you guys have any questions regarding the Learning Commons, please direct them to me through email or my office, and you can contact Prairie and figure it out. So, look to recognize the gallery, Prairie.
I won't be able to come next Wednesday. I'll be at a conference.
Okay, so any questions, I can just contact you during the week though?
Just shoot me an email and I'm glad to address them.
Sounds great. All right. Thanks, guys.
Did you share your email with the group?
Yeah, did you guys get the email, the questions I emailed this week?
Yes.
Todd, did you get the
you had
email?
better treat.
I forwarded, that
Yes, I
Kate
did.
forwarded, so everyone read through those questions and answers, 'cause I think those are pretty important to our decision. Okay, all right, so I won't go over that. All right, we'll move to base funding program reviews. I have the Mastache group here, so I'd like to recognize, I don't know your name, I'm unfamiliar, but
I'm Catherine Wickham.
all right, if you want to come up front, you have 10 minutes. I'd love to hear what the program is about.
Oh, yeah.
I have.
Cinema.
We all have.
Yes.
Yeah, all I remember is that,
Where'd you come from?
is that they misspelled
I teach your
Sherman
chemistry
there.
lab.
That's
And
I
some
forgot
students
the,
have to stay after.
How's that?
Exhausting.
Yeah, and they're also available in the bookstore and in the English department
Sorry.
and in the Museum of Culture and Environment. I just wanted to say thank you for your support of Monastache, and it goes back for more than the time that I've been at Central. When I came here 10 years ago, Monastache was already supported by S&A, and it is a point of pride for the university, and we have tried very hard to be as diverse and inclusive as possible in our call for submissions, and really tried to make sure that students in the centers are aware of the call, and that we get art and we get submissions and creative work from all over the university. I can answer the questions that were forwarded to me in this email that I got from you guys if you want. So for more than 15 years that we have on record, and it actually, the funding precedes like records that we have. So this is my approximate thing. We don't employ students. It's available to all students. We have a Monastache showcase at Source every year, and the students whose work has been accepted participate in this. And then there's also a public reading every year when the magazine is published. This is usually at the very end of spring quarter, beginning of May, beginning of June. And we have readers of the accepted writers there. And then in the past, I don't know, it's up to the advisor this year, but we've had an art exhibit of the featured cover art, interior art that accompanies the reading. We get feedback from students about the editing and production process through the classes that they're taking. Usually, I mean, it's hard for us to monitor this or really assess the effect that Monastache has, but it's used as a recruiting tool quite a bit. The deans use them when they're talking to new students, and it's also part of when students come to campus and get integrated and meet people, and we also use them for recruitment trips that are made by people going to visit high schools. So, it's very broad, and it also means a lot to the students whose work is featured in the magazine. A lot of them, if they are applying to graduate school or have resumes, they can put that they were featured in the magazine on those documents. So, I mean, it's hard to measure what kind of impact it has, and the students that are in the classes also can list the skills that they've learned, which are real world skills. All right. Well, we collaborate much with other areas in support. You know, we actually, I mean, if you've looked at our budget, we don't have very many line items. We have a pretty defined area for our funding request. You know, we tried really hard to increase the distribution and the input, okay, so this might be hard to read. I'm sorry, but we do have learning objectives for each of our classes, and the students that go through these. You know, for 484, this is the editing class, and they learn all about evaluation of the types of writing. They learn about teamwork and communication within the context of editing. Gives them a lot of professional skills, and this is emphasized all through it. They need to correspond with all the students that have submitted work. They learn how to do all this stuff, and organize and order the accepted work. So the other group of students are the production students, and they learn how to use InDesign, and they lay out the entire magazine on the computer. It's actually a competitive process where they each submitted design for the layout of the magazine, and so they will each of them have that in their portfolios. We have gone from printing 400 copies to 600, and then there are about 50 students that end up working on the magazine in one way or another during the year, so that was my guess. We meet the extracurricular learning activities goal for the university. And this is the student research and creative activity goal here too. Mentoring and monitoring those rules. And then I just included these in here. This is our end of the year from 2012, and then the following one is from 2013. And this confusing thing, I apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
Is that for some reason expense 53330 was recorded as memberships. There's no such thing, and it's really the Xeroxing fees. So, so that was a mistake.
Yes.
Resoundingly, it's a mistake.
I was asked a question soda voce, but I didn't respond, so.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. And I mean, you can ask me any questions.
It's better than no.
I was really interested, Heather. First of all, I wanted to let you know I have 2 books, 2 years books, and they're in my office on my table.
Great.
A lot of people comment on them, and I love them. My first question is, who does your graphics? You pay, is the $3,000, it's the majority of the budget, obviously. Who does this actual?
That's for the printing.
So it's not who
It's not the graphics.
It's not?
No.
So what is the cost of actually having this book produced, and do you do it here on campus, or do you? have it
We
on
get
the website?
bids, but it's usually done in the coffee shop.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
It's done on campus.
Yeah, we have the copycat shop.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay.
yeah. The $3,129 is the printing fee. So they're delivered of the file. Yes, and it is
So
printed.
it's about $4.50 a book. Okay. It's not bad.
For a color, it has color feature inside too.
Yeah, that's good. Have you looked into like community outreach at all with this program, or is it just mainly for central, students and stuff?
It's mainly for Central. I mean, the reading's open to the public. We invite community members. We do a full thing of publicity for it, and if community people want to come and see what our students are doing, that's great, and we give them the books. And Actually, I mean, we've had the reading at Art Gallery downtown before.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I know one of the university goals is to really bridge the connection between
Yeah.
the community and the university.
Yeah.
I think that's one of our biggest goals, actually. I think it'd be cool to, really connect with Gallery One and maybe some of their art pieces, or use their, you can rent it,
Yeah.
or have a reading there maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we did that before when you guys remember Black Cat Gallery downtown? No. Well, so for 2 years we did it there, and they let us put up the art there and everything, and it's certainly something
Yeah.
that we could think about.
Yeah, or even
Yeah.
like the senior home maybe. There's a lot of different,
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
I'm a huge community advocate, so.
Yeah.
Joy?
You're saying that you're reaching out and trying to get students from the centers and things like that, which is
Yeah.
great. Do you see a lot of students submitting works from the centers?
Well, okay. Here's the thing.
'Cause that surprised me.
Yeah, no. Well, because a lot of the students at the centers, are not people who are doing writing. I mean, they're mostly doing professional degree enhancement in other areas. And so when we started really focusing on that, we were just like, all right, there are like 5 entries from the centers. Awesome, So it's not, you don't see a lot, but I mean, we really are glad that at least we're trying.
Yeah, that's cool.
With that. And we
Yeah.
got the most gorgeous photographs from somebody who is at one of the centers.
Good.
Yeah. So I mean,
That's awesome. I really like that, actually.
we want to increase that.
Does the board have any questions?
I have a question. I was wondering to what extent publication in Manassas is a kind of a launching pad in that are there students who have gone on from publishing in Manassas to publishing in off-campus venues?
Yeah, definitely. And there are a lot of students, actually like graduate students who publish things in there and then gone to do an MFA program or something. And I mean, it's an important thing for them to be able to list a publication. But they definitely have published other places. We've been asked before, like, why don't you expand this and make this like a nationally distributed magazine, all this stuff. And I mean, we really feel like that would defeat the purpose in a way, because it would require there to be an apparatus within our department, within the English department anyway, and it would take the focus away from the way that the entire campus is really involved, I think. And if you would get submissions from all over the country, it wouldn't be the students' magazine. And what I really like is that this is Central students working on it, Central students writing, Central students art, the whole way.
Maybe look into like Central alumni maybe writing for it. That'd be kind of cool. Because it'd be a good way to bridge alumni and current students.
That's true, but would you rather have the current students, like more of them featured, or
That's
alumni?
true. Yeah.
You know,
You could have a
unless the
little
alumni, we
section,
could say like,
yeah.
if you donate a whole bunch of money to the S&A board, we'll publish you in the NASDAQ. Wouldn't that be good? Yeah.
Well, I mean, they could donate to your program and say, for $50 we'll publish a piece if you have. Or
Well, we
something.
don't want to mix our S&A money with donations.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Any other questions? All right.
Okay,
Thank you very much. We
Thank you very
appreciate it.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you
We
for your
love what you
time.
guys do.
Sorry I was crappy. I had just been in a really long meeting, so.
We've had much worse. All right. Hold on, I closed the book. All right, move on to subsection 9, other business communications received. I have not received any other than that email that was forwarded out to you guys from Prairie regarding those questions, and I'm not going to read that out loud because you've all seen it. So, you have any? All right. Sharon says hi from Florida. It's a communication.
Oh, my heart.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Move on to section 10, public comment, second call. Is there any public comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to section 11, adjournment. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. So moved. Is there a second? All right, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, meeting adjourned at 6:36 p.m.